Welcome back to the program. Boy, have I received a lot of emails from all of you. Holy cow. Josh, what's going to happen now? The Supreme Court has completely destroyed the economy and the tariffs and the Trump agenda and America first. And, it's over. If anything, it's going to get better. Okay? It's going to get better. Look, when I saw this going through, I said this was a 50-50 shot with the Supreme Court. And the reason I said that was pretty simple. Because the IEPA and what it is supposed to be able to do and not do, the administration was testing the boundaries of it, okay? Knowing full well that they had plenty of backup plans. But the surprise of this decision is on the wording of what this decision was, which actually has now clarified things much more, and quite frankly, is going to make the tariffs not only more powerful, but more plentiful as well. So we're going to break it all down, and at the end, you're going to be, taking the nooses off of your necks, and you're going to be relaxed, and you're going to understand more. But I want to start first with the President of the United States himself and what he has figured out, which he's an extremely smart person, and he's got very smart people around him, Scott Bessent, Howard Lutnick, all these great minds around him. This is what he understood from this decision, and it is absolutely correct. Listen closely.
While I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and more crystal clear rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't. It's terrible. And to think that the Democrats who oppose this only because they want to go the opposite way, they'd like to pack the court. They want to put on 21 people. They want to pack the court, pack the Supreme Court. Maybe they should do it.
So he says there, maybe they should do it. They should definitely do it. He's pissed off. He's angry. He doesn't really mean that, okay? But I can assure you at some point, the left is going to run an ad saying, look, even the President of the United States said that they should pack the courts. But put that to the side. He doesn't want that. He's just pissed off.
Maybe they would be better off if they did it. They want to pack the court. They want to do anything to hurt our country. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary.
Real quick. So there have been lots of decisions based on tariffs in the Supreme Court's history, and they have all sided for the presidency and the executive branch. This is the only time they really haven't. And so what does this mean? Well, it means that they've clarified a lot of past decisions now all the way to the future and what you can do and what you can expect, okay? And so when he says it's going to make it even more powerful, that's what he means. His brainiacs, including himself, but the people like Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick and some of these other people, and even his trade advisors and Steve Witkoff, I mean, he's got the most brilliant minds around him. They have been studying this stuff for years, okay? And they've gone through hundreds, thousands of prior trade Supreme Court cases, and they already know and were already set up just in case this went south. They already knew what was going to happen next.
The Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEPA tariffs.
Right.
And essentially it's used to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block embargo, restrict,
The ability to block, embargo, restrict. Listen closely.
license, or
License
impose any
or oppose
other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade
on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade
with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision.
fully confirmed by this decision. So what they thought they were doing, essentially, they weren't smart enough because they're not business-minded people. They're globalist shills, and they were looking out for what they thought was for the globalists here. In reality, this decision clarifies a lot more about tariffs and how you can use them and how you can implement them. So let's listen.
So now there's no doubt, because, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies.
So that was President Trump's reaction, and he's correct. So he's going to double down, triple down, quadruple down if he has to, and he's going to use other means to get around the Supreme Court in this ridiculous decision. Here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
I would also like to take a moment to address today's Supreme Court ruling, and I would note that I did not change a single word in my speech post the ruling. President Trump will always put our national security and Americans first. And as I have said before, the president has multiple tools in his toolbox. Let's be clear about what today's ruling was and what it wasn't. Despite the misplaced gloating from Democrats, ill-informed media outlets, and the very people who gutted our industrial base, the court did not rule against President Trump's tariffs. 6 justices simply ruled that IEEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026. And with
there it is. Now, the other thing is President Trump and America going to have to pay back all of these tariffs? I hardly doubt it, okay? I hardly doubt it. Why? Well, I'm going to break it down here in just a second. But to put it in layman's terms so that everybody can understand, what we can't do with IEEPA, we're basically going to take and transfer over to the other tools. So if there was money to be paid back, I mean, it could take years, number one. Okay. And number two, it doesn't matter because we're going to create so much more revenue that even if we did have to pay some back, it's as they say, a Yiddish word, my grandmother would say, it's bupkis, which means nothing. It's not much. Okay. So let's get into this. This is something that I researched a long time ago, but I was a little superstitious. And so therefore I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to jinx anything, because I was hoping that the Supreme Court was going to basically just say, well, if you don't want to use IEEPA, there's other tools for you. But because you've used all these tariffs and you've stopped all these wars and you've leveraged the playing field on the global scale and you've done all these wonderful things for America, there's so much out there that we're not going to mess with it. That's what my thinking was. Okay. But let's face it, the Supreme Court has a lot of global influence, unfortunately. And there are a lot of global businesses that were lobbying the court. There were a lot of countries out there that were lobbying the court to do this. And so some of these justices are spineless wimps, okay? Completely spineless wimps. Now, this does not mean that a good judge like Neil Gorsuch, who is a phenomenal judge, is all of a sudden going to turn to the left either, okay? It doesn't mean that we're going to get really bad decisions moving forward, okay? It means that the globalists want to curb what the executive branch can do, and even in an emergency. Now, that's not good, okay? I'll be honest, that's not good. But what they're saying is, we want you to go through Congress. So this was essentially a judicial branch grab, okay, by people that have no business being, involved with what's going on in the executive branch, okay? If there's an emergency, if it's a national security emergency, which is what was called when the tariffs were started, when he talked about Liberation Day back in April of 2025, that was a national emergency. And so now the court has wandered into an area that they're not supposed to be in, and they're trying to usurp power from the executive branch, all because he didn't go through Congress for implementing these tariffs. Well, it was a national emergency. And even Alito and Thomas and Kavanaugh understood that the executive branch, in order to protect the United States, both from a military and or financial perspective, has the ability to be able to do this. It's the other idiots that were probably paid off or influenced or whatever that look the other way. So there are 4 tools at a minimum, probably more like 10, honestly, but there's 4 tools at a minimum that the Trump administration has to use right now at their disposal if and when the court were to block the tariffs, which of course has happened. Okay, so a couple of them you're already hearing, but you don't know what they are, right? You're hearing, section this, section that. Okay, we'll get to that. So let me just pull through this thing here. Options on the table. If this ruling happens against the president, the ruling would block the 10% baseline tariff imposed by Trump on most imports, as well as the additional duties on China, Canada, and Mexico, but not sectoral levies, such as those imposed on steel, aluminum, and automobiles. The Trump administration, nevertheless, has other legal means of imposing tariffs, according to this article from CNBC. They can use and exercise Section 122 of the U.S. trade law. They can also use Section 301 under investigations of the U.S. trade law, and they can use Section 338 of the Trade Act of 1930. Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974 does not require a formal investigation and could therefore be one of the swiftest ways to get around the court's roadblock. Now, this is what President Trump said in that first 3 minutes that you heard from him. He said he's going to immediately put a 10% national security tariff on every single country around the world over and above what he already has. So the court's decision here actually increases the volume and the amount of the tariffs based on using Section 122. And that's what President Trump just said. So you're going to add that extra 10% across the board tariff on all these countries using, which is legal and constitutional, has already been decided. There's nothing that anyone can do about this. Section 122. Then it goes on to talk a little bit more. Trump could also swiftly launch Section 301 investigations on key U.S. trading partners. Now, one of the things that we heard but didn't hear right here is somebody asked him a question, and I think it was, do you think there was foreign influences on the Supreme Court's decision? And he said, no doubt about it, and wait until you see what gets released soon. So President Trump is already talking about the justices on the Supreme Court, I would assume more of the liberals, and who they're in bed with financially on a global scale, and where they're getting their influence from. So he's talking about Elena Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ketanji Jackson, who doesn't even know what a woman is. But he's also probably talking about Roberts, and he's also talking about Amy Coney Barrett, and a few of the others. And so because he can use this section of the Trade Act of 1974 to, quote, investigate anything he wants, he's going to do that. And they're already in the process of doing that. So this court decision, they should have just said, yeah, you can use IEPA, and that's the end of it. They opened up a Pandora's box for this administration to explore, okay? And that's what they're going to continue to do. Now, it also says Section 232, which are already in place for steel, aluminum, and auto imports, could also be broadened to other sectors. This trade and section law allows the president to take action against threats of national security. So even though they said all those things that you're not allowed to increase revenue or take in $1 using IEPA, that doesn't matter nearly as much because the 1974 Trade Act has specific sections in it that are now going to be used and implemented instead. So the Supreme Court in this case basically shit the bed, okay? That's the best way to put it. This trade allows the president to take action against threats to national security. Section 338, meanwhile, allows the president to impose levies of up to 50%, that's right, 50% on imports from countries that discriminate against the United States. So with all this hoopla and all this bullshit coming from the left, and quite frankly, a lot from the right, I mean, I'm looking at X, I'm looking at social media, all you morons, and I'll call you out because you are, all you morons out there that think you know what the hell you're talking about, and you think that the Supreme Court has neutered the president, and you think that, oh, it's the end and this and that, you need to just keep your mouth shut and listen to the grown-ups, the ones with the intellect and knowledge, okay, and the historical precedent and facts on my side, because I'm going to shoot you straight. I'm going to tell you what you don't know, okay? Not to do it in an arrogant way, but the reality is I'm seeing all these posts about, the Supreme Court and all this other stuff, and Trump's dead and the economy, it's over, and we got stopped again. Total bullshit, okay? You people don't know what the hell you're talking about. And that's why I don't even know how many emails today. Josh, what's next? Oh my God, what are we going to do? How is this going to work out? Relax. That's what I'm here for. Okay. So at this point, we have all of these different tools. Now let's see. another thing, we also have the Section 301 tariffs on Chinese goods, even under the previous administration, the Otto Penn administration, which were pretty harsh. So I can imagine that the administration is looking at those provisions again and seeing if they can use 232 or 301 and some other mechanisms whereby they can enforce those tariffs and actually increase them. Okay? So what does all this mean? It means that to all the globalist countries out there, the countries around the world that think somehow this puts America in a tougher spot, and you think that you're going to come back and you're going to demand money and you're going to think that you're going to gain any leverage at all, China, Russia, all the rest of these countries around the world, I got a couple of words for you. Go fuck yourself. Okay? It ain't going to happen. Not under our watch. We're smarter than you. We know what we're doing. We're going to continue to do what we're doing. And there's nothing you're going to do about it. Okay? You're going to be America's bitch, and you're going to be on our knees servicing us for the foreseeable future. You know why? Because President Trump runs the world, and that's the way it's going to be. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.